So that is the beginning to Blunt Words, Sharp Edges. Blunt Words, Sharp Edges is a song that I wrote actually pretty recently, back in, so let's see, I'm recording this video in April of 2023. I wrote this song less than a year ago now. So sometime, let's call it July, maybe August of 2022. And kind of an interesting origin story to this song. So I have a cousin who's also an incredibly talented musician, and he and I were having a conversation. We were all, family vacation out in Cape Cod, having a great time, and he and I were talking a little bit and playing music together and whatnot, and having a good time. And we were talking about this songwriting game that I'd heard about from some other artists that I know, and some others that I follow too, that had all been talking about this. We do this game, and it's a weekly thing. Every week you get a songwriting prompt, and then by the end of that week you have to fill out, you have to have a completed song, right? And it's recorded, it's uploaded, and every week you have to do it. You have to do it without missing a beat. Well, he's like, that'd be kind of cool, actually, and I was like, yeah, actually, that I've been thinking about kind of putting something like that together. I think it'd be a lot of fun, and so he and I decided to start doing that, and so I've got a list of like 3,000 cliches that I use as songwriting prompts for myself. If I'm feeling stuck, I'll just look at something and look at some random cliche and usually write something pretty bad out of it, but it kind of gets the juices flowing a little bit. And I think it was Ed Sheeran that described it as turning on an old tap, right? You're gonna have some pretty crappy water running out of it at first, but once that stuff flows out, then you got some clean water going again. So, but yeah, so I used to use these things all the time. So I'm like, oh, well, I'll just start there, and we can use that as our kind of early prompt. And so the first prompt that we got was, I think it was the bluntest words have the sharpest edges, or something like that. And I'm like, okay, I've never heard that before, but it's an interesting and pretty impactful statement, right? Because it's also pretty true. I've seen that in my life, that we've all had, well, anybody who's been in a relationship has been through some sort of an argument, I'm sure. And if you haven't, then, well, you have to tell me your secret, but we've all been there, right? We've all had those kind of those relationship conversations, and the times when we just kind of argue with one another, and it doesn't really stop. And so when I heard that phrase, I'm like, that kind of feels like, it sounds like that feeling that you get when your partner or your good friend or whomever kind of just lays out a blunt statement. And it feels like it simultaneously hits you with a baseball bat and cuts you in the chest, kind of a thing, right? I mean, it's those hard hitting statements that kind of have that double impact. And so I'm like, okay, so cool. That's a good place to start. And that dull as a spoon, sharp as a knife, kind of. I was going to say metaphor, but that kind of the juxtaposition between a dull spoon and a really sharp knife, that all of which hits at the same time, and words hitting harder than the city lights. I spent most of my adult life living in cities, so that spoke to me quite a bit, because every time that I would get into an argument with past partners. Fortunately, my wife and I have a bit of a healthier relationship now. But in the past, when I would get into arguments with past partners, I would just walk outside and just start walking. And there was oftentimes when you kind of first got out there, especially when you're kind of just blind with anger or frustration, or just got to get out, those city lights hit you really hard when you get out there. So that was kind of the start of that song. And as I started thinking about, okay, well, what happens when you do that, what happens when these things happen, and that's where the blunt words, sharp edges, shout until there's nothing left. We keep pressing towards the ledge with blunt words and sharp edges. It just felt like it kind of captured the way that I feel that I've always felt during those kinds of arguments that were like kind of relationship shattering arguments, or at the very least relationship shaking arguments, right? Whether or not they were the ones that kind of put the final nail in the coffin of the relationship, or maybe they were the ones that that you kind of were able to bounce back from and come back stronger on the other side. I've been fortunate to experience both, right? And so that was kind of the impetus behind writing that song. And it was kind of a fun song to write because, it's a fun, kind of a fun rocky song, there's like, so, it's got this like upbeat thing, but it's got but then when you hear the words and you hear the what it's talking about, it's got a little bit of a different vibe to it. So, and then there's a middle eight where it's like, sometimes I wish that I could feel the part when we're on the other side of these broken hearts. I never thought that this could be my life, but we keep using words that only cut like a knife, right? And so this, this feeling of, and again, this is something that we've all felt, right? We've all been there, this feeling of, my God, just get me to the other side of this, get me to the end of this, because, oftentimes these types of things aren't things that you get into because you want something to end, right? It's not like you want the relationship to end usually, but you're just kind of have this feeling of desperation, this feeling of, my God, how do I do this? How do I get to the other side of this? And fix it when all we keep doing is battling with each other, right? And so I thought it was kind of like I said, I thought it was just kind of a cool song to write. It came pretty quickly, came pretty easily. And it was fun to kind of put myself in those shoes again, because when they when you're writing a song, you've got to really one of the best ways that I've heard it described is you've got to feel the breath, the person's breath on your cheek. You have to be that close to the person that you're writing, whose personality or persona that you're embodying, to know that. And so that was one that was kind of interesting to jump back into a little bit and kind of talk about exactly how I was feeling in those moments. So anyway, would love to hear your thoughts on it. Like I said, I enjoy the song. I think it's a fun tune, so I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on those moments, on those types of things when you're just like, yeah, I wish that I could be on the other side of this, or and how you get through the other side. Because me, I pick up a guitar and I start writing music. So, but anyway, hope you're doing well, and I hope you like the tune. You can check it out on the YouTube channel. It's up there. A version of it, an acoustic version of it, is up there right now. I'm going to be recording it and releasing it pretty soon in the near future. So, but with that, I hope you're all well. Cheers. Have a good one.